2 broken cameras, sleeping guards, a billionaire pedophile found dead in America's most secure prison. The official story: suicide. But when you actually examine the evidence, the autopsy reports, the timeline inconsistencies, the missing surveillance footage, something doesn't add up. I'm not here to tell you what happened to Jeffrey Epstein. I'm here to show you what the forensic evidence actually reveals. August 10, 2019, 6:30 a.m. Jeffrey Epstein is discovered unresponsive in his cell at the Metropolitan Correctional Center in Manhattan. But let's start with what we know for certain. The physical evidence. The autopsy report, conducted by New York City's chief medical examiner, Dr. Barbara Sampson, ruled the death a suicide by hanging. The official cause: compression of the neck, leading to cardiac arrest. But here's where the forensics get interesting. Dr. Michael Baden, one of America's most renowned forensic pathologists, who's worked on everyone from JFK to O.J. Simpson, was hired by Epstein's brother to observe the autopsy. His findings raised immediate red flags. Multiple fractures in the neck, a broken hyoid bone, bleeding in the eyes consistent with strangulation. Baden stated publicly, "These injuries are more consistent with homicidal strangulation than suicidal hanging." Now, the hyoid bone. That's a small U-shaped bone in your neck. It can break in hangings, but it's actually quite rare. Studies show it happens in only about 10 to 25% of hanging cases. But in strangulation, homicides, it breaks in over 50% of cases. The autopsy also revealed hemorrhaging in Epstein's eyes. Petechial hemorrhages. So we have 2 expert pathologists. Same body, same evidence. Completely different conclusions. Now let's talk about the security failures. Because this is where the case goes from suspicious to statistically improbable. Epstein was being held in the Special Housing Unit, the most secure area of the MCC. This is where high-profile inmates and those at risk of violence or flight are kept under 24-hour surveillance. Standard protocol for someone on suicide watch requires checks every 30 minutes. A cellmate at all times. Continuous video surveillance. Paper clothing and bedding only. Here's what actually happened. His cellmate was transferred out the day before. He was left alone. The 2 guards assigned to check on him every 30 minutes fell asleep and later falsified their logs. They didn't just skip one check. They skipped checks for 3 hours. And the cameras, 2 cameras positioned directly outside his cell, malfunctioned that night. The Bureau of Prisons claimed the footage was unusable. Attorney General William Barr called these failures a perfect storm of screw-ups. But let's do the math here. What are the odds that both guards fall asleep, both falsify records? The cellmate gets transferred. Both cameras malfunction, all on the same night. For the most high-value prisoner in federal custody, statistically, astronomical. Before Epstein's arrest in 2019, he had decades to build what investigators called an insurance policy. When the FBI raided his Manhattan townhouse, they found thousands of photographs, DVDs labeled with names, a safe full of cash, diamonds, and a passport. A fraudulent Austrian passport with Epstein's photos, but listing his residence as Saudi Arabia. But here's what they didn't find. The surveillance system. Multiple former employees described an elaborate CCTV setup throughout the mansion. Cameras in bedrooms, cameras in bathrooms, all feeding to a computer room where footage was stored and monitored. When police executed their 2019 search warrant, the wiring was there. The mounting brackets were there. But the hard drives, servers, and recording equipment, gone. His former IT contractor told reporters the system existed. Former household staff confirmed it. But somehow, before federal agents arrived, it all vanished. This wasn't just one property. Epstein had estates in New York, Florida, New Mexico, Paris, and his private island. After his death, the FBI seized multiple computers and hard drives from Little St. James, his private island. But the content of those drives, still classified. The public has never seen what was on them. What we do know is that Epstein's little black book seized from his Florida butler contained over 1,500 names. Presidents, princes, billionaires, scientists, Hollywood executives. The book included phone numbers, addresses, and detailed notes about connections. But most of those names have never been publicly linked to any wrongdoing. And that's the pattern. Evidence exists, but it disappears, gets sealed, or remains classified. To understand why Epstein's death is so suspicious, you have to understand who he was connected to. This wasn't just a wealthy pedophile. This was a man with unexplained access to the highest levels of power. He had no college degree, no Wall Street credentials. Yet he claimed to only work with clients worth over $1 billion. His one confirmed major client, Leslie Wexner, the billionaire founder of Victoria's Secret. Wexner gave Epstein power of attorney over his entire fortune. He transferred a Manhattan mansion worth over $50 million to Epstein for $0. After Epstein's crimes became public, Wexner claimed Epstein had misappropriated vast sums from him. But he kept Epstein on for years, even after the 2008 conviction. Then there are the intelligence connections. Epstein's former business partner, Stephen Hoffenberg, who ran one of the largest Ponzi schemes in U.S. history, claimed Epstein was the architect of the fraud. But Epstein was never charged. He traveled on a fake Austrian passport, listing Saudi Arabia as his residence. His social circle included Adnan Khashoggi, one of the world's biggest arms dealers, with documented CIA connections. Former Israeli intelligence officials have suggested Epstein may have been running a honeypot operation, compromising powerful people for intelligence purposes. There's no hard proof, but the circumstantial evidence is troubling. And here's what makes it all more suspicious. His 2008 plea deal. Federal prosecutors had drafted a 53-page indictment. They had 40-plus victims willing to testify. The evidence was overwhelming. Epstein was looking at life in prison. Then U.S. Attorney Alexander Acosta met with Epstein's lawyers. What happened in that meeting, we still don't fully know. But the result was unprecedented. Epstein got 13 months in a private wing of a county jail. He was allowed out on work release 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. And here's the key part. The deal granted immunity to any potential co-conspirators, not named co-conspirators. Any co-conspirators. That meant anyone else involved in the trafficking network, no matter who they were, got blanket immunity. After Epstein's death, the case didn't end. It pivoted. Ghislaine Maxwell went into hiding. Then, in July 2020, FBI agents arrested her at a remote property in New Hampshire. Her trial revealed disturbing details about the trafficking operation. In December 2021, she was convicted and is currently serving 20 years. But here's what didn't happen. No one else was charged, despite the little black book with 1,500 names. Despite flight logs showing dozens of powerful men on Epstein's private jet, the only two people ever held criminally accountable were Epstein, who's dead, and Maxwell. So what can we conclude? We know Epstein died under circumstances with multiple simultaneous security failures. We know 2 expert pathologists disagree on the cause. We know surveillance footage is missing. We know evidence disappeared. We know his plea deal was extraordinary. What we don't know, whether he killed himself or was killed. What was on those hard drives? Who else was involved? Why he received such unusual legal treatment? The official story is suicide, but the forensic inconsistencies and security failures create reasonable doubt. And reasonable doubt is all we need to demand answers. This case matters because it asks about whether our justice system applies equally to everyone, or whether wealth and connections can buy different rules. Until we see the footage, the evidence, and the full extent of the network, the questions won't go away. If you found this valuable, hit subscribe. Drop a comment with your thoughts. This is Behind the Bars.